Forgot to name this. So Rhiannon is currently stuck in traffic, but she is very close to being here. Other people arrived early.
A little more guttural.
So while we wait, here's some stuff.
Sorry.
Oh, hey.
Let's bring this on.
Struggling with the light.
There we go. Struggling with the Light, the saga of
Once
the
again.
Dungeon Scrawlers interviews.
Did he just leave? He just left.
He just left.
Anyway.
He said he has not figured out his Rogar accent, so if you missed what I said a minute ago, Rhiannon is stuck in some traffic, which Seattle is famous for, and we figured while we're waiting for her to get from the off-ramp to my house, Erik and I would come and chat with y'all. So this is a wonderful time for the, I can't ask you that question. I thought of a really interesting question. Well, it's a stupid question, but it's a fun, stupid question.
I like fun, stupid questions.
So once upon a time, when I worked at Wizards of the Coast as an editor, and we played
During the golden years of Wizards of the Coast fiction.
We played
Years?
It's one of those I'm like, I don't know if I should weigh in on, because when I was an editor, I wasn't an author yet, so obviously I have opinions.
That's true.
This is like when people ask about what's your favorite edition, and I'm just like, out, because obviously I have a preference for the one that other people don't. So the Kendra says we are 3 hours from her, but that's not counting traffic, Kendra. Actually,
3 hours from Kendra, but counting traffic, 6 hours from Kendra.
So I believe I remember hearing at some point, Kendra, that you are from Portland, and so in addition to trying to get from where she lives over in Seattle in Ballard, which might as well be where dragons are as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Swedish dragons, to be clear.
Swedish dragons.
Yeah.
She actually was in Portland this morning.
Wow.
So she drove from Portland home, and now she's coming over to talk to you guys about her character. What were we talking about when I got distracted? This is why
you had a really cool, dumb question to ask me.
So I remember.
That's the thing.
So we were playing. This was actually the game that generated Farida, because my character was Farida, a Fey-pact tiefling warlock who had a twin sister. And my twin sister was not like Havilar. She was a rogue. She was like Havilar in the sense that like she kept a list of things she killed, which seems like something Havilar would have done, but Havilar didn't do that. And she was way like sharper and feistier and like, roguish than Havilar would ever be. But so Phil Athens was the managing editor, and he was our DM. And so they were also running a blog, and they had all of us answer questions about our characters. And the one question we all got asked was to play Marry, Date, Dump, which is the PG version of a different game you may know, with the other half of the party, because our characters were all straight in this game. Although you could fold it lots of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot this. I completely forgot about this until I was trying to think of questions for Rhiannon. So
Tangentially,
Randy, maybe we should have Randy come back in here and play Marry, Date, Dump.
maybe so. I was going to say, tangentially, the characters in our game are not all straight, so...
That's fair. And so there would be some resets, because I don't think Rogar is straight, but I don't know. Rogar is kind of repressed, so that's a question.
Rogar is definitely closeted. Don't tell him we said so.
He kind of said that last time.
Oh, yeah.
Because I asked if he had a Dulcinella, and he said he had a Conan. I see Randy heading out here.
I think he heard us talking about, the secret's out.
Everybody came early. So we have our game tonight, except Rhiannon.
Everyone except Rhiannon came early, yeah.
Hi, did you want to play Marry, Date, Dump?
You say the name Rogar and you summon him.
So we established last time that Rogar isn't interested in ladies. Is that accurate? The other characters don't have to know. Cecilia has no idea.
That is it.
Cecilia doesn't want to think about what
Is it Rogar's not 100% interested in ladies? Because I kind of got the sense there was some uncertainty, some ambiguity.
He hasn't had a lot of experience,
flexibility.
so.
Okay.
So we could.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we could play Merry Date Dump,
Okay.
and the choices are Sturge, our rogue. Very, he's very strange.
Hold on. Yeah.
Long-nosed rogue.
Yep.
Yep.
Sturge, Stong, and Dieter. And obviously
well,
you're answering for Rogar, not for you.
Rogar, out of the group, would probably go for Stone. He's,
For which? For you got to pick one for each.
He's
for Mary.
sort of Oh,
Are you gonna marry? So
The
so
bugger. The bugger. Which one's bugger?
Date.
Shag.
Also dumb. Yes.
that one's
sorry,
date.
what's-
So
what-
so
what-
the,
what
the
choices?
regular one.
For
The-
dwarves, it would be wed,
Aye.
shag, and crush.
Okay,
Shaggy
you can play
crush.
Wed Shag Crush.
Wed, shag.
They do. I
Wed,
believe
shag,
they don't.
crush.
They don't want
Stone
F-bombs.
to shag.
Okay, that seems
It's a solid choice.
solid choice.
And when I say solid choice, I mean solid choice.
Which now is just gonna make things really awkward and weird when Yang, nice.
No,
No,
I think it'll
no.
be
That's
fine.
Rogar and
This is-
Stong.
I have some
It
questions
won't make
for.
anything weird because it's already weird.
Already weird.
Because it's Stong.
I don't know. I think there's this interesting. I had some questions for Rhiannon about like the separation of self and character.
So here's Sturge when we had the doppelganger show up. So that gives you a general idea of what Sturge looks like. He describes himself as sort of Alan Rickman Snape, but with a really long goblin nose. And
Yeah, I think he's at one point Kylo Ren cosplaying as Snape, although he's kind of shifted and changed.
Yeah,
so Sturge would be Sturge would be my avoid.
Your crush.
Your crush.
My crush.
Your dump
maybe?
crush.
Crush not in a romantic way.
Right.
Unless,
Because there's something dark and bad, maybe something on that level. But yeah, no, Stone, Shag, and what was the
Mary.
Wed.
Wed. Sorry,
Wed.
Wed.
Wade?
That means you're wedding
I
Dieter.
guess that would be Dieter.
Dieter. Oh,
You got- You got your shagging and your crushing out of the way.
that would be quite
That would be
It would
never
be.
a dull moment.
They're destined.
two
to work
dwarves, arm in arm, striding through the land,
together. Brothers in arms. Okay.
butterflies and rhinos. Two dwarves traipsing through the land, hand in hand, happy as can be.
No, that seems very accurate.
Oh, yep. That's a dwarven marriage. Hold
Okay.
hands.
So I think what this means is Dieter better not show up as an NPC because that would just solve the campaign right there.
Right. Yeah, Dieter will show up if Rogar needs to go.
Yay!
I texted. You did.
Bye, folks.
We just thought we'd catch people who were waiting a moment to.
Just entertaining people a little bit.
Okay.
So Rhiannon's here.
Yay.
I'm gonna bid you all farewell and let her take it away.
Okay. Now the main event. So, welcome to another Dungeon Scrawlers interview. I'm Erin M. Evans, the author of the Brimstone Angel Saga. And today I'm going to ask questions of Rhiannon Held, who's getting herself sorted. So let's do this. Hi. Rhiannon Held, who is a fantasy author. She also writes under RZ Held. She's best known for the Silver series from Tor, which is in urban fantasy about werewolf society. It's very good. She also writes Weird Western and Space Opera, which is the RZ Held. You can sit on there. You can just pull that chair up. That's more comfortable. I stand on that a lot to get to the top of the whiteboard. You've been published in lots and lots and lots of magazines, like Beneath Ceaseless Skies, I think is the most recent one.
Yep.
Yeah, you read a lot.
Well, I don't know if it's a lot, but Beneath Ceaseless Skies, this month, my newest one, called Swimming Apart. It's very good. She read an early draft.
Yes, Rhiannon and I, so actually one of my first questions was sort of how do you get involved in this, but also I wanted to talk a little bit about how we know each other, because for once, I knew her ahead. Everybody else, the question is sort of like, did you come because you knew Erik or because you knew Steven? I thought everybody knew Erik because everybody does sort of know Erik. But it turns out Steven is Erik 2.0 because everybody also knows Steven except me, apparently. But now I do know Steven. So how did you get involved with this whole thing?
So I don't remember if it was Erik or it was Steven who contacted me about this. But I think I met Steven first, maybe?
Yeah.
Because NorWestCon, the local convention, does a writing workshop, and I was involved as a professional as part of that. And I think I read an early version of Steven's novel.
Oh, okay.
And you'd have to ask him like what year that was, but literally many years ago. And then I think it was later that I met Erik through other gaming circles. Yeah. So Steven writing, Erik gaming, it all came together.
Oh, nice. Oh, you're doing really good at segueing into other questions. Although I wanted to mention, so actually Rhiannon and I know each other because we're a part of the same writing group. So we get to read each other's early drafts and critique on them and bring our different ways of doing things to each other. So do it my way.
And someday we'll co-author something.
Someday we'll co-author something, and it will either be awesome or it will cause some sort of No, I enjoy the fact that we do things very differently because there's a little bit of like, wait, my way isn't sort of like the only natural way. I must interrogate it. And then also there's a little bit of like, okay, so I could tweak like this, and that didn't occur to me. At least that's how I feel about it.
Sure.
So, what is your background with D&D, with role-playing games, doing this kind of stuff? And actually, I'll spoil. Someone asked earlier if anybody played any MUDs.
Oh,
I
know.
Yeah, somebody else was asking, and I was like, come see Rhiannon! But I didn't get a second.
Sure. So I'll start like not way back, but certainly in like high school, I really wanted a D&D game because I knew about it. Like it was one of those things where I'm like reading all about this kind of thing, but I couldn't find somebody to actually like be the DM for me. So college was when I had my first actual D&D game. And around that time, there were like 2 or 3 things that happened in like the same year. So my first D&D game, my first LARP. I have LARPed, and LARP no longer. It's not really quite my personality. It was a World of Darkness LARP, which is one that is quite popular. There will
That's all
also
I know.
be people.
That's all I know. It is also not my personality.
And
play
then
me as a vampire. That's all I can.
I did werewolf also.
Oh yeah.
And then I got into the Moo scene, MU star, because I think the first one I was on was Amok, and then they switched to MOO code, and I believe I was on Mush for a while. But so my first Moo experience was X-Men, based on the movies rather than the comics, the original trilogy that they had from Fox. And so it definitely informs sort of how I think about role-playing, because I had the experience sort of in my early D&D games of some of the more like dice rolling aspects of it. And then Moose really takes you into a whole different world of not more role-playing or something like that, but definitely ours was very dice light. You can have coded dice in a Moo, but ours was dice light, and so there was a lot of sort of collaborative storytelling as far as how a fight would go versus like rolling the dice to find that out. And it also sort of informed all kinds of interesting things because you need certain things about like the I'll talk sometimes about the IC-OOC divide, so that's in character versus out of character divide, because it's very important when it's you typing and you're saying something out of character, and then you might be typing and it's you, but you're saying something IC in character, and it's very important to have like really strong walls between the two, which is a little bit different than sitting around a table and it's kind of like, well, you know, I'm saying what my character is doing and then I'm rolling some dice, and it's not quite so, it's a little bit easier to sort of differentiate between the two. And LARPing, for a while there, even after I stopped LARPing, the system we are using, this means that you're out of character.
Oh, handy.
So for a while there, I was
Doesn't count!
I would have this impulse to be like this. The other thing I'll show you that I continue from LARP days is that, I make sure the camera can pick me up.
Here, I'll tip you up.
That for instead of dice, you would do rock, paper, scissors wins, 2 out of 3 or whatever. But you don't want people to see when you start to throw something. So you put it behind your back, you decide, and then you bring it out, having already thrown it. And so to this day, if somebody's like, all right, rock, paper, scissors for, the last piece of pie, I'm always like, all right, ready to go. And they're like, where did your head go?
What are you doing? Like, I don't know that one. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so do you think that being a writer affects the way you role play, or vice versa? Does having a background in gaming and role playing games affect the way you write?
Yes.
I should say, how does it? You don't just get to say yes or no.
I wasn't good.
That's fair.
So that's actually easier to answer for the moves, because I ended up thinking about it a lot at the time, because moves are full of drama. It's the thing. And something that sometimes is thrown at people in the midst of drama is that they're having their character act too much like a protagonist. And you can't have that in a move, because then you have a room full of like 10 protagonists, and it just does not work.
This is a really good point. I think we have this conversation where it's like, you can't have it, like we were playing this game, there are 6 of us. 6 of us know how to structure a story for a protagonist. That's not what this is, and it can't be. This can't be like the Cecilia show, right? I mean, it would be amazing, but it would fail as a game. And so there is a certain sort of shift you have to take, which is really cool that you've had that background, you've had that experience of how to like take that and sort of shift it into a different medium.
Yeah. And sort of the best thing that I learned from others, and also sort of figured out the way myself, so I won't claim that I came up with it, is the strategy I found is you try to give as much as you can to others. And that then when everybody's doing that, then everybody gets interconnected, and it's really, really awesome. As opposed to the failure state being, as a protagonist, you're sort of trying to take other characters' energy. So you would think, oh, well, I just won't take. Well, the won't take sort of ends up with sort of flat and not much happening. Whereas giving, if you can find ways to give to other characters, then that sort of comes alive. And so I think I was talking to Randy about story hooks, which is, you think of, for a novel, a hook, on page 1, you want something interesting about the character that sort of pulls the person in. And story hooks or character hooks in a move end up being something like, you want something in your character that pulls in other characters.
Yeah.
And so it can be as simple as, they're new in town, and so like they need to hire somebody to paint their house. And you might do something like that because that you're like, okay, well, there's an IC painting company that exists on this game. And so there's 3 different people who are painters. And so my character coming in being like, my house is unpainted, that's a way to hook in like any of those 3 people. And that's kind of a sort of silly example, but when you start thinking on a meta emotional level for the characters, sort of like this person needs a father figure or something like that. Yeah. And it's best if it's not a like 1-to-1, where it wouldn't be quite as good to be like, I need a painter and there's only 1 painter. And maybe that person like has newborn twins and it's not going to be on the game, and then what do you do?
Like,
but some kind of like this
carpet cleaning.
This character needs a mentor figure. And then you can sort of open that up, and then there could be many different ways and many different characters to sort of fill that need for your character. And the other thing is that well-adapted characters who have sort of all the loose ends in their life tied off don't need anything.
Right.
So as a writer, I'm like, well, you don't want a really stable, well-adapted character because then they don't have adventures. And
They're really annoying, really hard to write.
And then as a role player, you don't want a stable, well-adapted character because even if, okay, so they're an X-Man, they're really well-adapted, so they're still going to go on missions. Like, that's okay. But they're so well-adapted that they don't need to, like, you know, they don't need a mentor. They don't need to get drunk with somebody because they have inner demons. Like,
They
well,
just
what do they
show
do?
up and roll the dice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not fun to watch, so we will not be bringing you that. Okay, let's talk about Artemisia. So Artemisia is your half-elf sorceress. This is interesting. There's an interesting aspect to Artemisia because there are things about Artemisia that are secret, and some of those are secret even from Artemisia, which I think brings up a really interesting like conversation about sort of the sort of separation of self and character, like how it is very authorial in a way to be like, okay, but she doesn't know, and she doesn't know. That's gonna rock her world later. So we won't talk about those because I think we want to like keep. There's certain things we want to keep secret. Yeah. But sort of, what were some sort of inspirations for her personality, for aspects of her character?
So now I'm trying to think back because the Artemisia, I'd been playing for a couple years only in one-shot D&Ds kind of games, and so I had sort of a basic template of a character that I would recreate in each situation, which is the half-elf sorcerer. And so that was the beginning of Artemisia, but I'm like, okay, so this is not a one shot. It's not just about what spells she has. It has to be actually about her personality. And so where's she gonna to grow from there? And I think the genesis of her was really which is not one of the secrets. Her sorcery is the dragon ancestry, whatever. And so I liked the idea of it's so far back you don't know where it even came from, and that maybe it was a surprise. And then I'm starting to think, okay, well, her situation is that she lives with her, or grew up with her father and stepmother. And so the mother not being in the picture.
Just for the fact that we're on a Forgotten Realms site, we decided her stepmother is Simbark because Artemisia is from Aglarond. And her stepmother obviously has very particular ideas about what is the right kind of magic. It is not dragon blood sorcery. That is inappropriate.
Which kind of came from me because I find sorcery to be more fun. I find it sort of more emotionally crunchy for a character to be sort of like powers, as opposed to I find the wizardry, the mechanics of it to be a little bit more sort of logical, and that's less the kind of character type that I'm looking to play.
See, we agree about something.
And so I'm like, okay, definitely sorcerer. And then Aaron was talking about, high class wizards.
Yeah. Did we? This is sorry. This might be an interruption, but so when we were starting to play, Erik ran a fiasco game actually, which involved us kind of trying to figure out like relationship things, and some of those stuck, and some of those have not. But have we talked about being sisters, or did we do that at Fiasco? Okay, then it just came up at Fiasco. We're like, this is ours.
I think even after the Fiasco, we were still figuring out which parent.
Yeah.
Because I knew half elf, and then you, and then which parent was the one they shared, and sort of then that branched off into our two different upbringings for the different characters. So okay, Artemisia's origin story.
Here's a slightly different question.
Sure.
When do you feel like so like when you have a character, right, and you play them for a while, that there is sort of a process of like figuring out who this person is. So is there a moment where you feel like you found Artemisia's voice as a character? Like you feel like, okay, now this is who she is. I got this.
Yes, and the question is, can I put a pin on when it happened? Because definitely it was sort of a sort of gradual thing. Because with me not having done as much tabletop, it takes longer for me to not get a character voice in my head, but to be able to convey it, myself, my speaking, my manner, whatever. It takes much, much longer than if I was to, in a book or on a mud, be sort of typing out what she's doing. And I think when she really came alive for me was when I started thinking about sort of alternate universe fan fiction for my own character.
That's right.
So the thing about AU fanfic is that you really have to know the voice well, because you're taking the character from all the trappings of their current situation and then putting them into, ancient Atlantis or whatever. And so anything about their situation that was sort of informing what you think they might do is now gone. And so you really have to have a good sense of how would this character act, because they're in such a wacky oddball sort of situation. And so I started thinking about Artemisia in wacky oddball situation, and that really gelled her voice for me, because that was all that was left. Was what would she do? What sort of emotional journey would she be on?
Nice. All right, let me see. We want to make sure we get good things. This question's going to take a while, probably. I wrote, we play sisters. We are opposites but friends. I love a sister dynamic. What kind of dynamics do you write? Elbows. Because here's a fact about Ms. Rhiannon Held. She is excellent at writing chemistry. She can write some smutty smut. But also, it just bleeds out the page. So there was a story wherein a gentleman took a lady by the elbow. It was a post-apocalyptic sci-fi thing. Though.
Yes,
they were like in a spaceship, and it wasn't a moment where you were like, oh, but you can't write an unsexy elbow touch. You are incapable of doing it. So that's the short version of what kind of dynamics that you like to write that I know of. But you should probably check. There was a question in here about whether we were sisters. We are not actually sisters. No. We both actually have sisters.
It's true. I'm the older one.
Me too. Do you think Artemisia thinks she's the older one? Because they did not grow up together. They grew up with their respective fathers. Do you think Artemisia thinks she's older or younger?
I think she totally thinks she's the older one.
Really?
I think we
Cecilia
decided that
also thinks she's the older one.
Cecilia actually is the older one. I believe we figured out. I mean,
Randy wrote, banging hot elf guys TM. That is definitely Artemisia's MO. This is the thing I love about Artemisia, is that she has these characteristics, and in someone else's hands, I feel like you might just play it all the way straight, right? She's very particular, she's a little prissy, she likes things to be just so, and look nice, and be nice, and like Sturge is not allowed in the house because he cannot be trusted not to track things everywhere. And like, there's a certain way you might carry that on where she's also maybe a little restrained, a little British. Nah, girlfriend goes to the fest halls and finds the hottest elf guy available, takes him home. Because she's also a little insecure. She is. Right? She likes that reinforcement of like, okay, I got it together.
And really, I mean, in her opinion, maybe also a little bit in mine. Elf guys on the top of the hotness scale. And so, like, when she gets the hottest elf guy in town, she's made it, man.
She's like, okay.
I mean, like, personality, fun? No, she made it. She got him into bed. Which will probably bite her in the ass at some point.
Her current boyfriend is terrible. And
yeah, he
really
doesn't
like it. Okay, so Eric's like, speaking of smutty smut, does Artemisia have any hot suitors in Westgate? Perhaps some that Cecilia disapproves of. Accurate. Who's your boyfriend, Artemisia?
Well, we met at a party. So
bad news.
Yeah. Right now she's dating an elf dude called Lilton.
Which some of you may be familiar with Lilton from certain novels by a certain Mr. Erik Scott to be. So some of you have more knowledge than Artemisia has right now.
It's true. But he's very rich. He's very mysterious, enigmatic. Tends,
Con knows a con.
tends to come and go, but he's got an island. I don't legitimately know if the island is real.
That's true. After our interview last time, we played D&D, and we got captured by an incubus, succubus. We ended up calling it an omnibus because they kept changing genders. That trapped us in dream worlds where they said that our fondest wishes were granted, or the thing we wanted most. But I posted on Twitter about it because I thought it was really interesting the way that was true and also really not true. So Artemisia was on an island
with Lilton, and so she was really safe, and like he was cooking her breakfast, and like she could just sit in the sun or go swimming, and it was just like beautiful. And like Westgate, because they were in the Sea of Fallen Stars. Westgate was like far away. You couldn't even see like the sewage outflow. In my day job, I'm an archaeologist, so I think of things like sewers for cities. So where it sort of started to break down was that she got bored because she spent so much time thinking about how she's got to be a great noble and like really important in the city, and like all the sort of jockeying for power and like looking beautiful to like charm people. And she forgets that her magic is really an important part of her. Mm-hmm. And there was a great moment where the Lilton, she was like,
I mean, they're both terrible and manipulative, so they might as well just be saying
she was like, oh, I'm gonna go practice my spells or whatever. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he kisses her, and he's like, one for the road, and then he tries to drown her. It was really great.
It was a very entertaining. The other question we got is, this is actually a character account. So Zanafriel is the character played by one of the mods, Kelly. She wants to know how we found out about each other. I found her. I got a tip from someone.
Someone secret?
Someone. It's not important, you don't know them. And they said I should find her because of course I should find her. I want a sister. It's great having a sister.
And on Artemisia's side, she was sort of in the, because I think we figured out she's like 20 or 21, something like that. She was in the awkward stage where she has to figure out like WTF, like being an adult, what does she do with her life? So at that point she was still living at home. Her stepmother was not great, but she did raise her. And then like sister pops up and is like, we should do things.
Let's go on an adventure.
and Artemisia was like, oh, if you twist my arm, oh, she's twisting my arm, I gotta go.
And then we have excellent fun times, except when that Lilton jackass shows up.
Or you disappear.
Well, I mean, I had a thing to do. First of all, the first time was not my fault. I said, we're going in this Feywild gate, follow me, and then you didn't follow me. And then I was gone for a week, and I came back, and everybody was like, oh, it's been 2 years. And I'm like, that's dumb and garbage. And it's not my fault, because I'm not in charge of time.
She might be younger now.
That's true.
I never thought about that.
I didn't either.
So she started out older, but now she's young.
Maybe. Although Cecilia is going to maintain that she's the oldest one, and she has to be the oldest one. She has to be the more mature one, because otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. All right, okay, so I'm going to give you some most likely twos, and you tell me which member of the party is most likely. So who is most likely to track mud on the good rug and not say anything?
Well, Sturge would be most likely to track mud on the rug, and then you're like, was somebody even here? I think so. And you're like, these footprints just appeared. Sturge! I feel like Stong would apologize.
That's true.
If he did do that. So.
Okay, who's most likely to remember to use a coaster?
Not Caleb. maybe Rogar.
That's fair.
He seems like he's like, if you asked him really nicely, that he would make an effort to.
Who is most likely to do the best lightning spell?
I had mine first.
Liar! Witch Bolt! Witch Bolt came first! She's copying me.
Lightning bolt is cooler.
I enjoy it because you have that dragon heritage, so the lightning goes along with the bronze dragons. But I put lightning in mine largely because the Hathorn picture I found early on has like lots of lightning. I'm like, that's cool, and that's kind of like got a good nature like vibe. And so there's two independent things.
Mm-hmm.
And I also enjoy the fact that Setsuya is like probably like, oh, it's really cool. She wants to be like me. It has nothing to do with her. And actually, I think lightning bolt is more powerful. Or maybe you just roll better. And so now it's like, copycat.
Well, and also her dragon heritage is through her father.
Right.
And we share the mother. So it completely is convergent.
Got a roaming elf mother who I really hope shows up at some point. And I really hope she's big bad. Erik, if you're listening. Okay. So we'll go back to go to your books. Who is most likely to be a secret werewolf?
Oh, interesting. I feel like Kayla definitely has like secrets.
That is accurate. That girl has a lot of like, don't know what's going on, close to the vest stuff.
Exactly. And she just sort of like, she is completely unexpected sometimes because you'd expect like beautiful winged elf not to be the kind of person who gets drunk and wakes up in a tree. However, having found Caleb in a tree,
you gotta get her down.
or to like take up with her necromancer boyfriend.
She's dating this guy, man.
Well, now she's doing them.
Now she's doing necromancy. I don't know what that's about. I don't think he's sticking around.
So hidden depths, man.
He's also just kind of. Cecilia is very judgy about everybody's relationships.
Well,
apparently.
gross.
Also, like, I just don't think I don't think he has good control of them. He just doesn't strike me as someone whose personality is necessarily strong enough to keep some zombies under control. Who's most likely to survive the collapse of society?
Interesting. Let's see. I'm like one by one. I'm like, oh no, the needs. I mean, I feel like Cecilia would do really well if there was anybody else, because like there's this sort of like last person on the planet kind of.
Your charisma score doesn't matter at that point.
Exactly. But if there are roving bands of whatever, she seems like she would be in with the most powerful in like a day.
Yes.
The question is whether she would fall back out of favor again later.
She's one under the bus, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Cecilia's a survivor. All right, now the moment we've all been waiting for, because Randy did it while we were waiting for you. We're gonna play Merry Date Dump. Now, just a quick question: Artemisia likes men, yeah, pretty exclusively, right? Okay, so you know how to play Merry Date Dump? It has another name, but this is a family-friendly Forgotten Realms group I've been led to believe.
I was going to ask, dump, does that mean that... Okay.
But it's just, let them down hard.
Okay. Because there's some people where I'm like, would she even, like, get involved with them in the first place to dump them? But I think we could do some kind of, like, automatic reject.
Yeah, we'll call it that. You can also lightning bolt them at the same time. It's okay. There we go. All right. So who is your Mary?
I think it would be Stong. And it would be a companion marriage. But the thing is that they've had a really good partnership between the two arcs. Arc 2 is what we're going to start with in January. They've had a gladiator team in the arena.
I super forgot that part. Prissy Artemisia secretly fights as a masked fighter in the gladiatorial arena.
Exactly.
No
one can recognize her.
The Bronze Wolf.
The Bronze Wolf. And the Smashing Bastard.
And the Smashing Bastard. That's right. I used to be on their team. Cecilia used to be on their team, but then she had to go do something.
Yeah.
It's having fun without me. I hate it.
So I feel like they make a good team. And she's also impressed, like, how well he takes care of Mirabelle.
That is a good point.
It's
father material. I have no idea if Artemisia even wants kids. I can't even imagine the answer to that question.
No.
All right, who would you date?
Well, I think I might like open it up. Like if there was a male Caliph, I think. Like, because I think that's the sort of thing where Artemisia would initially be like, oh, no, doesn't pay their rent on time, like seems really kind of like scattered, things catch on fire in her vicinity, like what's going on here? But I think it's the kind of, it's a spark of like adventure that Artemisia craves, because her failure state is she falls into stagnation. And so I think that there would be definite sparks, and I do not think it would be a long-term thing. But
can I also point out that Caliph is the only elf in the party, and she's ethereally beautiful. So as a man, I assume that would hold. So I think this is pretty on brand.
Exactly.
All right, who gets dumped?
I think so. Since it is dumped, for dumping, I will say Rogar, because Rogar seems like the kind of safe, smart choice that Artemisia would make, and then discover that like she really doesn't want somebody safe and smart. She wants somebody exciting.
You're the hot trash fire.
So she'd let him down easy.
Yeah.
I think automatic reject would be Sturge, sadly. I think that Artemisia is afraid that he will steal her magical artifacts.
100% reasonable. You can't leave that guy alone with anything. All right, let me check if we've got. Oh, does Artemisia have a familiar? Was the question. Are you? Erik was describing.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
She would claim it's not a familiar. Artemisia has a pet. Inadvertently. So in one of our adventures down in the sewers, Artemisia got very much ate by a gelatinous cube, like down to 0 hit points.
Erik described this encounter in the first interview, so if you have not actually watched that, it is still available, and it was ridiculous. Like, we almost got TPK'd by a gelatinous cube.
One gelatinous
cube. the part where like Stong is like trying to leap in and push Artemisia out, like tiny, frail Artemisia with a strength of 6, and Stong is like and totally just stuck.
Anyway, so after this, off screen, there was a little cube in the basement, and so Erik was like, "What would she do?" And I'm like, "She would magic missile the crap out of that thing." And I was like, "But that's so sad." And also it cleans things up. That's the thing. Like it eats the sort of debris when it's like a little couple inches guy. And so we decided that what happened is it sort of like splattered, but there was enough of it that it sort of started like growing itself up again. And now there's a gelatinous cube that lives in our basement, which connects to the sewers, but it's up in the basement part, named Roomba for no reason. I mean,
it's Elvish for tidy. Prove me wrong.
And so it was around the basement, like very quietly keeping everything clean. And she did a little research, and it can't like melt through the door, so she's safe. So now she's a little bit sort of like proprietary to it. Those of us who live in the house, Caliph, Cecilia when she's there, Rogar, I think maybe was in the basement for a while.
I think he still lives there.
Well, he was adventuring, I think, maybe.
Oh, that's right.
During
Rogar and Cecilia, the Gap, or somewhere else.
Anyway.
By the way, I think he's moving back in.
There's a sign for the door that says, "Do not leave door open. Cleaner is working." Because if you let it out, then it will escape.
Yeah. We were talking about gelatinous cube, like peeling gel facials. So Cecilia might have a business proposition.
Artemisia would not partake.
It's cool. You don't need to know about it. Okay, and I think we have hit all of the questions, and we need to go feed ourselves before we play D&D tonight. Thank you guys for coming and for asking your great questions. I think our next one is actually, we're gonna try and do, maybe do 2 next week. They might be Monday and Friday, but Monday should be Stephen Merlino, so you guys will finally get to meet the infamous Sturge in person. I feel like everybody who's coming is like, here's a story about Sturge. And I think Yang Yang might have volunteered for the Friday one. So we'll see. But I will post another event. So if you enjoyed this, like it and mark your calendars for, shoot, I've lost the January 8th.
Yes,
January 8th. When our show, the Dungeon Scrawlers present Westgate Irregulars, will premiere on Gen Con's Twitch channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.